So as I mentioned in the email and in the posting, we are going to be recording this and sending it back out to you. So if you don't have time to be furiously writing notes, no worries. It'll be back to you in the next day or two. But otherwise, I am going to be not speaking because I admittedly know very little about tech theater. And so I am having one of Retheater's education mentors. Anna is here and she is unbelievable.
Hi.
You guys are going to be blown away. She's so freaking smart. So I will be manning the chat and putting anything that comes up as far as resources in there. So yeah, that's kind of the overall logistical part of this. The other thing is, just to be very clear, this is a brainstorming session. So Anna is here to obviously she's super amazing at technical theater and so much other parts of theater, but she'll be here. She's going to go through some very basic ideas to consider when doing work online with your students, especially in regards to sound, lighting, and set design. But then we're all going to talk together.
Yeah.
And just have a conversation and talk about what are things that you're trying, what are you trying to troubleshoot, and see how as a community we can all come together to help each other. So yeah, without continuing to blab in your face, I'm going to introduce Anna. So Anna, hello.
Hi. Sorry, I'm just checking in. And please, I'm just going to spew for a little while and riff on this, but absolutely interrupt, please, with any questions or anything. But Lindsay and I
jump into it.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure.
That'd be great.
I'm actually in a little bit of an advantage, and I give you guys so much credit because I am home this year. I have taken a year off because I have a 2-year-old. I have a 6-year-old and a 2-year-old. So I figured before any of this craziness happened, this was the best year to just be home with her. So, but before that, I would be going into my 11th year of teaching tech theater at predominantly performing arts high schools. I'm based in New York. And before that career, my life before that was a equity stage manager. So I ran the gamut of New York theater tour. I did a little bit of Broadway, and then just decided that let me back up. While doing that, I was a teaching artist. So my whole career sort of balanced between teaching artist and going into schools and doing it professionally. So by the time I hit the higher rung of New York theater, I made a left and got married and had a family, and went to grad school to get my teaching degree. And when I came back to New York, I was just fortunate enough to be hired in performing arts high schools. So one, I built the tech program, and another, I just sort of walked in and took it over. So to that end, I would never call myself a tech director. I'm more of a tech teacher who takes on teaching these things, and then we do the shows with the kids. I mean, we're theater teachers, we do theater. So I can see why everybody's having such a hard time at this point. I give you guys so much credit. And I've actually been in contact with a bunch of my kids because they were in the middle of their shows and they were heartbroken when their shows got canceled. So just, I feel it, and I hurt for them and I hurt for you guys. So that's where I am right now. Is I am home and thanking my lucky stars that I have been home this year, but really still entrenched in just doing theater with the kids. So
yeah, and so we're gonna chat about some ways. I think one thing before we dive too deep into it, Anna, you and I were having a conversation before we started this about the difference between giving our students busy work versus actually encouraging them to learn. And I think that this is something that I find just a good reminder, and I think is a good jumping off point as we go into what we're talking about, because we really want to inspire our students to have that creativity, which is what we do every day in the classroom normally. But so how can we do that in a more digital medium? So you had some thoughts on that I would love if you would share with the group.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing that sort of jumped out to me is like we were well, first of all, I got a lot of my sort of brainstorms from other teachers. And so there is a list, as Lindsay was talking about, of just resources that we can all sort of touch on. But theater is so hands-on and so practical that to give our kids the assignment of go watch something and then don't do anything with it is where none of us are going to benefit from that. So I think just backing up a little bit into with each design form, what do we want them to know? And then how can we go create a project where they can play with that? So for example, something like sound design, how does sound create a mood, is one of the lessons that I have in my sound design unit. So am I going to sit here and lecture kids about how sound creates a mood? Sure, that's one possibility if you're doing a Zoom lesson. But then the lesson could be, here's the mood I'm looking to create. Let's go through your arsenal of music and find something that does this, you know, or let's figure out a way to tell a story through your playlists, or let's make a playlist that sets this particular tone. So that's just one example of giving them work that really gets them to the next level of understanding what you want them to understand, but it has a purpose. It's not busy work. It's not go watch this, but and absolutely we're going to talk about, because there are so many, one of the beautiful things that's come about this is all the resources of theater you can watch. There was actually an article in the Times this week about the fourth wall is my screen, which was so interesting to me, because we are there. That's where we are. So how do we make that screen be not the teacher, but be the avenue in which they can do some real critical thinking on their own, do a project that responds to it, and then come together and share it, because that's what we would be doing in our classroom anyway. So that was just sort of a beginning of how we can start this conversation, is what do we need them to know in each subject? So again, like today, if we're specifically talking about lighting and sound and set design, let's brainstorm what are the important things that I want my students to know. And it might be different from what you want your students to know. In one of my schools, we work in a black box space. We put on very high quality theater, but for practical reasons, I don't need them to know how to work a catwalk. I just need them to know how to they can literally climb a ladder and focus all the lights for me. So I need them to know what quality focusing looks like. So it looks different for everybody. There are some sort of standards or pillars of design that I like to teach that I'm more than happy to share in each of these categories. But I think that's where we need to start. And then the second thing, and I think if we brainstorm, we could walk away with some really good ideas, is what are projects they could do that will show you that they understand what these pillars are, or what the moment, the lesson you want to teach are. So not to use the old school education term, but the backwards mapping of it, and then meeting them in a place where it will be interesting and it will be fun, because we all know that theater class is where they go to have fun. So let's bring that back into their house. So, and I mean, I have a set design project that I've been doing for years, but it's turning their bedroom into a set on paper. But it teaches drafting, and it teaches scale, and it teaches design, and you go through the the pillars of design. So stuff like that is really what I hope we can all come out with today, are some ideas on practical lessons that the kids can really just have fun with. Start there. Yeah.
Sorry, I muted myself.
That's
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. And I think that's like a really great place to kind of go from then and kind of open it up. So Anna has got a lot more like specifics, but we want to hear what you guys are working on. And like what specific questions, if you have any specific questions. If you don't, we can continue to riff for the next like hour in like minutes or so, and that's fine. But if any of you do have questions, if you want to unmute yourself, go ahead, and we can do it that way. Or otherwise, feel free to write your questions over in the chat, and I can respond to them.
While I'm still on, do we all know about, I'm just going to bring them up on my screen. So the Facebook group, are we all a part of the Facebook group? High school theater directors and educators. Are we all on that? Are we all part of the, what's my other one? Teaching Tech Theater, I think is the other one. Because they're, I mean, I've gotten some phenomenal resources from them lately. And even teachers posting their own stuff and saying, feel free to use it. So I definitely want to point us in that direction first, because it's just so easy.
And there also is the other one that just popped up. Oh gosh, is digital
theater. Yeah. So
theater?
Another, yeah, let me find that. Where is it?
Yeah, I'm just writing all these in the chat. So if anybody's like, what are these places?
So digitaltheaterplus.com just opened up their digital library. So they're based out of England, but they just opened up their digital library to teachers. So, and I literally got this email as Lindsay and I were chatting before we logged on. So I'll read through it, but it's just another place to offer your students access to theater that they can watch and then come back and discuss.
Yeah, and it looks amazing. They have such great stuff in there. Wonderful. Okay, so the first question came through, which is great. Amanda, and this is kind of like just a general question, and we can definitely dive specifically into tech. But Amanda was just wondering what everybody is doing as far as rehearsing via Zoom. Like, are you guys still doing rehearsals? If people want to unmute, we can kind of, I'm sure that we're all over the place on this, but it's probably a good place to, it's a good conversation question.
Well, I can add in that I have, my show was canceled. So there is no rehearsal, but I'm going to be using, we're right now what's called phase 2, which we're still giving enrichment exercises and activities for students. And then when our spring break is over, that's when we're going to get into phase 3, which we call pretty much we individualize our teaching. So the good news is I have a good 2.5 weeks to kind of still put things together before I get into phase 3. So I'm trying to jump into as many classes as I possibly can. And when I saw this one, I was like, yes, because I teach a drama 4 class, which is all tech theater.
Okay.
So,
and do your kids work the shows? Do they design and build the shows?
They do.
Okay.
They do. So they were in the midst of working. We were going to, we were in rehearsal for Alice in Wonderland. So I had kids working, I had some kid, you know, and I give them the choice because a lot of them are juniors and seniors. So I give them the choice. Do you want to be on the costume? Do you want to be set? Do you want to be lighting? And then it goes from there. So I had, you know, a good group of kids working on each of those processes.
And tell me again, where were you in the process?
Where were we in the process?
Where were you in show?
We were pretty much in rehearsal of the second week of rehearsal.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So sorry. That's all.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not rehearsing a show at the moment. What do you guys what is everybody doing with their?
There's a lot of different, like, just like if you guys don't have the chat open, it's actually very interesting. So I'd see some of you guys are still doing rehearsals online. A lot of the teachers that I work with through Retheater are choosing to do that, but it does get tricky. And we're actually going to have a Zoom specifically about that at the end of this month. But some people, you guys are definitely doing it. Others of you guys are like postponing it. It looks like it's just all over the place. I mean, Alyssa just said that Zoom doesn't work, or she can't use it for her school. Like, I give you guys so much credit as we're going through. So yeah, okay. So it sounds like we're all over, and I see that Eileen, this is a really good. I think this is interesting. You're working right now on doing online acting classes after your show was canceled after final dress. That happened with me in my school in Seattle too. Like we got to do 2 shows and that was it. But you're trying to add in some lighting and sound also to your classes, which should hopefully be a really, really great opportunity. So yeah, Eileen, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, I felt so bad that the kids didn't get to do their performance. But on the other hand, since it was final dress, we invited one parent to come, one person from the family, and then they videoed it and then let everybody have access to the video link. So actually more family got to see it than would have seen it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So I sent an email out to everybody and I said, I'm going to attempt, I haven't used Zoom before, to start doing acting online. And I always try to have them be a part of the costuming and sound and all these other parts. And I usually have them help me. I've written the outline usually of a play, and then they help fill in all these other little parts, kind of devise theater. So this is good, listening to the ideas for sound. I'm just trying to see how to do that. So I'm just waiting right now to see who's in. And the fun thing about that, my classes won't be limited to people in my county.
Oh.
They can be I have grandkids on the other side of the United States, New York, and
they could jump in.
They can be in and I always was so sad I couldn't be their theater teacher, but now I can.
Right. There, silver lining.
Yeah.
I do want to jump on something that someone wrote. Who was it? Allison said that you might be able to do the show with minimal sets, costumes, props, etc. And I love the idea of that as a challenge for your kids. If you want to create a assignment, because I know we're talking a lot of how to get this work or how to create assignments for the kids that are meaningful and will still move your projects forward. But I love the idea of posing to the students that we had this grand design for our show. We had our lights, we had our sound, we had our costumes. Now let's scale back. How do we get my vision? How do we make this director's vision crystal clear in a minimal way? What are some choices you can make? Because design is all about choice, right? When you teach sets, lights, costume, sound, it's how do we convey meaning? What choices are the designers making to convey that meaning? So if you want to pose to them, let's take our show in whatever stage it was in and now create a reading model of it, but still have lights, costume, sets, and sound. How would you want to present that? So give them a little bit more of the directorial reins and the creative reins and let them come back to you with a plan, like a design plan. So just an idea that maybe to use the work that you guys have been doing so far, but have the kids really hone in on what are the very specific things that they want to convey through the design aspects.
Okay, I love that. We were supposed to do 3 different shows, one happening in April and 2 happening in May. And they're all very different. One is super kiddie and one is a little bit more grown up.
Right.
We had this plan of this big, beautiful barn being built from the fly system for Charlotte's Web. And it was just going to be like an outline of a barn and very like abstract, and we would have little hooks and things to hang things on, like the metal that Wilbur wins at the end would hang on the barn and all this. And I'm like, guys, like I'm talking to my team and I'm like, if we just have to have a kid from the other show because we never know if everyone's going to be available for this new
Right.
date, right? So if we just have a kid come out and like hold the medal up,
Right.
like we got to do what we got to do. Like it's not necessarily going to be what we thought it was going to be, but I think it's a great lesson for the kids right now to go, okay, how do we still make the show go on?
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, how's this going to happen? And what's my part in that? And I love kind of throwing, I mean, it would probably come back a big old mess because a lot of them are really young, but throwing them that ball and going, okay, what do you think the sound would be like for this? Or what do you think the new set could look like with us as the set? If we had to play the role of the barn in addition to the sheep and the goose and the gander, how could you be a part of that barn or help us tell that story?
And what's the age group of these kids?
So the ones in Charlotte's Web are 10 to 17.
Okay, but so making a model in their house of the stuff that they have is a fantastic project for that.
I think that's great.
And I mean, there is absolutely no, I mean, you can certainly put constraints on it. Make me a model out of recycled items, or find your favorite building items that you have in your house. Or, I mean, I once taught set design with Legos and it was so fun. It was random and, you know, but again, what do we want them to know? This is such a great opportunity for them to look at theater as a whole and not just their acting in it.
Right.
So, and again, go back to your, what kind of sounds do you want to hear? And how do you make those sounds without a Q lab? Record your brother being the sound of the pig, or, you know, like ask your, I don't know who lives, you know, ask someone in your house to be background noise while you make the carnival sounds or something like that. So again, it's a way to back up a second. What does the show need, right? So there's another project that you can do right off the bat. We're doing our show in whatever capacity we're going to do our show. What do we need to do it? And I always called it the wants and needs list. So if you're reading a script, what are the needs of the script, right? You cannot do Charlotte's Web without an actual web.
Right.
But what do we want? We want that barn hanging from the, you know, that would be amazing. So if you take kids back to the script and have them break down each design area in lighting, sound, sets, costume, what do you need? What do you need to tell the story? And then let's back up a second and say, how can we make that happen? How can you make it happen with the stuff you have in your bedroom or with the sounds you can make with your voice?
Right.
Or lighting's a little bit of a challenge, but it's really great to look at lighting and say, how do we do Charlotte's Web? Or how will lighting help us tell the story of Charlotte's Web? Is it day or is it night? Is it afternoon or is it evening? Are we inside or outside? So you can make it very sort of basic for that age group.
I'm really excited to go back to the director of Charlotte's Web. And then we have another show. We're just calling it storytelling because the kids wrote it with the teachers. So it could be anything. I'm from Louisiana and we have a big trash problem. And so it actually turned into a play called The Swamp Monster. And it's all about this big monster that's made of trash that lives in the swamp.
And you make it out of trash.
Love
it.
Yeah.
Love
and actually there's a kid that plays the swamp monster. So like she could probably just make a costume at her house out of a sheet and glue like cans and trash all over it and it would be amazing.
Yeah.
I'm excited to pass this along to the other two directors. Yeah.
Good. I'm glad. Yeah. I mean, it's when I had a very fun show. And this was like a main stage show. And in New York, I don't know if this exists anywhere else. I'm sure places like it exist, but in New York, there's something called Materials for the Arts. And it's a reuse center and it's very much big business donate all their unused items. So like bolts of fabric and
Wow.
furniture and
Oh yeah. Okay.
but we made a set out of complete reuse. And I just think that's the most creative way to get kids to think about design.
That's really
So I love
cool.
that. That's great.
Awesome.
Cool.
Great. So if any of you guys have questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. Otherwise, if anybody else has any questions, if you want to unmute yourself, you can do so, and we can start getting into like more nitty-gritty stuff. Yeah, Misty, that's great. So Misty said she's excited to have time to actually teach technical theater elements because she doesn't have a lot of time to usually do that. So great. Misty, is there any specific aspects of it that you want like a little refresher on, or that we can help you dive into a little bit more?
I'm reading the comments.
I unmuted you, Misty.
Oh, there I am. Yeah, there we go.
Hi.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So I have very little opportunity to teach technical theater right now for a variety of reasons. One, our system is so incredibly antiquated that it doesn't allow for much. And then, of course, there's the problem that I'm sure we all face, where you are the teacher and the director and the lighting designer and the set designer and the costume designer and all the other designers that there are. And so it's just, the reality is, if it's going to get done, you just have to do it. You would love to teach it to students, and you try to snag them and draw them in and show them what you're doing as you do it. But there's just not much time to actually teach it. And with our system, pretty much all it will do is lights up, lights down. There's just not much else. I can stick a gel in front of it, but I have 5 working instruments right now on that system. And it's a 300-seat auditorium. It's a beautiful space.
Oh
beautiful, amazing space.
I know, I've been in those. Yeah.
So we can light it.
Okay. But to clarify, but you want them to learn it even though you don't have this is okay. All right. So
at least to have some idea of what goes into lighting a show when it's more than just the lights are on and I can see. But really, like, what else can you do with light? What else can you do with sound that we can't necessarily do, but I want them to be aware is an option out there. And so that's really my challenge. And because it's been so long since I studied any of this, like you mentioned, some of the pillars of design, and I was like, oh, that rings a bell. I need to write those down, and I need to go back and refresh. What are the pillars? So that's really where I would love to have you go, unless that's too elementary for some of these others, and I don't want to steal that time.
Sure. I mean,
like do a thumbs up or say yes in the chat if that would be helpful for you. Just so, okay, great. Yeah.
I do want to jump on. So one thing that's important to me in teaching tech is just to make sure that kids have an understanding of design and what design is, and then move it into the plugging in, the building, the actual microphone, the actual light. Because I've always seen, I mean, obviously one feeds into the other, but I've always seen with teaching that tech teachers jump into, here's how to build, here's how to hang, here's how to focus. But why are we doing it? And what choices did we make to put the lights in that spot, to make the set look the way it does? So I always encourage, when you're teaching tech, to begin with design. And I do it in a very basic way. And again, I have a similar issue, is that my space doesn't require 5,000 light. I mean, it's not a 300-seat theater. We can fit 90. So, and again, we want it to look amazing, but that requires design, and it requires conscious choice of where you're putting things and why. So when I teach lighting, I start with, and I am sure that a professional lighting designer would stop me like mid-sentence and say, oh, no. But I have always found success with helping kids understand lighting design by breaking it into four pillars, and that's illumination, isolation, mood, and effect. So if we talk about lighting, what does lighting have to do? We have to see the actors. The audience needs to see what's going on stage. So you light them. But now, what if the director wants you to only look at one thing? So that's when you isolate. That's when you focus the light on the thing that you want the audience to see. And again, I'm very general with this. When we add a color, we create a mood. When we play with the levels, we create a mood. Lighting is always going to make you feel something, whether you realize it or not. As an audience member, lighting is going to help you feel something. And that's why I call it the mood, because it shapes how you're receiving the picture on stage. And then the last is effect, because you can create some beautiful pictures with lighting. You can make lightning, you can make a disco ball, you can make water, you can plug in a gobo, and you can make some beautiful pictures on the stage. So if I have found in my teaching that if kids understand that on a very basic level, this is why and how you light a show, then they could go and make decisions while reading that script or while creating their scene. They can go and make decisions. Oh, I want the focus to be on stage right while this dialogue is going on. Great. You just made a decision to bring down the lights everywhere else and isolate stage right. Or I'm doing Hairspray and we're at the dance. So what effects do you need in that scene? Quite a bit. You know, you want the lights flashing. So there are many. If you start here with these four, and then one assignment that we can give from home is go watch something and identify where you see illumination, where do you see isolation, where do you see mood, where do you see effect. Let's all turn on Newsies on Netflix, because a lot of us have Netflix, or go to the digital theater and maybe watch one of the Shakespeare's that they've just made available. And let's look for these four pillars. And now let's study the lighting designer. Let's go look at him or her. And what other shows have they done? Have they made similar decisions on that show and maybe another show? Or do they have this great range? So that's a fun way, and I think an easy way to have kids understand lighting and not feel intimidated by it. And then when they have that, I just found this the other day, and it's, again, thank you to Facebook, because Matt, let me look up his name, but he's a lighting designer. Matt Kaiser, Mattkizer, has some fantastic videos. Great stuff. And he has a lot of pictures of his stuff. So it's a great resource to, bring in.
Can I chime in?
Yeah,
I was on one of those Facebook pages, and there was a great lesson with creating moods with light.
I saw,
Just getting a couple of flashlights and then taking pictures of the different things. So I'm definitely going to steal that one.
I loved that one. Yeah. But to set it up so that, like, why is mood important?
Right.
Before you do that. Yeah.
Absolutely.
There also, I do want to recommend, wherever you are trying to get your local professional lighting designers on a Zoom lesson. I think it's phenomenal. I've seen that work so many times in such great ways. I have a friend who's a stage manager. She's working at the Roundabout, and they don't know that their show is going back up, which is devastating. But she has done a bunch of Zoom lessons with some local colleges. So and it's so successful to have the kids just ask direct questions. So.
And I also, Taylor also mentioned that she's learned intensity, direction, color, and shape as the element. That's what I learned in college too.
Absolutely. So that's when you get down to now you're making decisions, right? So if you illuminate, what's the intensity going to be, or what's the angle going to be? Or if you isolate, where do you want to isolate from? A 40-degree angle or a straight overhead? So they all then, yes, pop into these separate categories. Let me look. But yes, I mean, and again, this is not hard and fast. This is just the way I teach it. So please keep adding those in because they're all valuable. Looking.
Also, yeah, who is it? Sharon. Yeah, I saw that one too, on one of the Facebook groups where you use the bottles filled with food color and you shine
water through them. Yeah.
That's a great one too. Awesome. This is some really great stuff on lighting. If anybody else has specific questions on lighting, now might be an awesome time to ask those. However, if you want to unmute yourself, go ahead and do so. Otherwise, I have another question to ask. That's really great.
Amanda, yeah, this is awesome. I'm reading about your book. Thank you.
Are these assignments on the Facebook pages that have already been mentioned? Yes, Allison, what actually would be really awesome if you guys want, because there's so many of those pages. If you guys have any that you specifically like, if you would put those in the chat, I will gather them and put them in the recap email so that we all can have them. Because I feel like every day I go and find a new page. I'm like, oh, who knew? But yeah, okay, so Taylor, this is a really good question, Taylor. So Taylor says the biggest obstacle that she has is that many of the students have very few resources at home for projects. Our administration has instructed us to create curriculum, assuming that they have nothing but pencils and paper.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, some families don't even have internet access. So what, do you have any ideas around that? Or if anybody else does too, feel free to chime in and we can work through this together.
Are they able to get their hands on scripts even, or that's even too much to assume?
I don't know if you can unmute yourself, Taylor. I can unmute you if that works.
No, it's okay. I got it.
Awesome.
So they have scripts. I mean, I work mostly with, because I teach young kids, kinder through third grade. And so I'm not teaching high school right now. I mean, I'm a teaching artist, so I go all over the place. But my kiddos for kinder through third, they have a script that we were working on that we had to cancel. And that's kind of where we're at right now.
Okay, and they have the scripts though.
From like, because they've had them for the last couple months.
So is it, and I mean, stop me because I don't want to make any presumptions. Is it okay to ask them to read through these scripts with parents or the people that they're home with right now?
So yeah, I mean, that's a part of the assignments that we've been assigning or things like that. Yes.
Okay, so then I would say if that was a possibility, then go ahead and turn your living room into the stage, and let's just make this a fun activity where, again, what sound effects can we make coming from our mouths? How can we do this play if it was just me and mom and dad, or me and mom, or me and mom and brother, just doing this play by ourselves? How can we make this work? And what do we need? How can we set up the living room? Or what furniture can we bring in from another room to create the space that would make it look like the play? And then if there is a way to record it, awesome. Like if there's a cell phone version of it, great. But I think bringing in elements that represent theater outside of the play, this is a good time to experiment with ways to do that. Let me see.
Is that helpful, Taylor?
Awesome. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Do you have any other, does anybody else have any other?
Yeah, I'm just brainstorming
about that?
I know that like as far as, so I'm just jumping in really, really
Yeah.
late here.
Hi, Julia.
And I'm sorry. Hi, sorry. I know that, for example, I'm teaching high school tech. And so we start officially next week, but right now we're lesson planning. And all of my kids are into TikTok right now. So like I had them, one of my assignments is go into your closet and find an outfit for a character you want and make a TikTok of you lip syncing whatever it is show that they're doing or musical that we're covering. And I let them pick whatever they want. Like it wasn't a specific show that you have to go from. I also let them do it for movies as well, because of course not everybody is as into theater as I
Right.
am.
Just to pick that up a notch, and also Taylor, just a thought, set it in a new time in a new place. So maybe take your play and make it future version, and go through your closet and create a costume that can make it take place there. Or really fun, like social studies segue is pick a year, you know, like in my school, we have this fantastic project where every year the freshman class does Oedipus, a truncated version, 30-minute version, but we set it with a new director's vision every single time. So it's just so interesting. It was in post-Katrina New Orleans one year. It was in a post-apocalyptic world where only the elements of nature survived, but no humans. I mean, they really went crazy with it. So I encourage you guys to just on a very basic level, take whatever script you're working with, change the time, change the place, and ask them to design it again. It also really encourages some specific research that they can't just Google and take the first Google answer that they find. They can also, and again, if there is no internet access, go to their bookshelf and pick out their favorite book and set their play in the time of their favorite book. And, you know, with younger kids, maybe do a Where the Wild Things Are version, or I don't know, I have a 6-year-old. I'm trying to think of the book she loves. Or, you know, she would set it in any of the Madeline places. So with the understanding that internet might not be readily available, if they have a bookshelf with their favorite books, that might be an area that they can explore, and gives them inspiration for costumes and lighting and sound. And so, but I do love that TikTok idea. And so just to take,
so fun.
You can now make a bunch of different TikToks, you know, if you do one a decade, start in the 20s, work through the 80s. How fun would that be for them?
Awesome. Okay, Laura had a great one, or she said saw a great crossover with art. She saw a lesson where students pick a painting and recreate the painting and submit the picture. That's awesome. I love that. I do that a lot with Tableau work. So but that might be harder because you don't have all your students there. But that could, I don't know, that's a different class that's a different brainstorms later in the month. But I love that. So yeah, they give their interpretation of the painting. That's amazing.
Or also create a script, you know, now bring the painting to life.
Absolutely. This is wonderful. Okay, who else has questions? Don't be shy. We want to be here to help you. Is anybody doing anything with set design or trying to do anything with set design in your classrooms?
So for us, what we're doing is because we're supposed to have at least 6 weeks planned now at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So each week it is a different element. We're not allowed, I'm in Texas, so we have the teaks. So we're not allowed to teach teaks that we haven't taught. So it's kind of like just reviewing everything that we have. And for set design, it was actually somebody who was talking about like living room. That was actually one of my things is use your living room and your, what are they called? Furniture. Yeah, it's been that kind of day, y'all. And use your furniture to move it around and set this specific scene in this specific play and tell me how you would feel, kind of thing. Or like use your kitchen or whatever. You use the resources they have, because I teach at a L1 school, which is a very low level school as far as income with families. And so it's really based on whatever they have in their house. And a lot of kids don't have much.
Understood.
Which is
Yeah.
the tough part.
Have you guys heard of I think they're called empty scenes, but it's a dialogue, but it's not set anywhere, and it could be used for a myriad of different places and
Open scenes, yeah.
settings. What are they
Open
called?
scenes.
Mhm.
Open.
Open
Thank
scenes.
you.
Countless,
Yes, I should know that.
constantless, love it.
But yeah, what a fun way to get kids to think of designs is give them an open scene of maybe a page long. Now go put this in your living room and create a scene around it. Go put this in your bedroom and create a scene around it. Go to your backyard or go down to the street or your foyer. I don't know, but give them the assignment that they need to place this now in 4 different places, but make decisions about what the light's going to be, the sound's going to be, the set's going to be, and what they're going to wear. And they don't even have to do it. They just need to make the choices that would reflect. And then an extension would be, now send me the soundtrack or send me the music that you would play with this scene, or draft up some costumes. For set design, I just wanted to talk a little bit. I had mentioned it earlier. I have a project that I do every year, and I love it because it really lets me learn a lot about the kids. And that is, I teach set design through having them create a set design of their bedroom. But what I like about it is I could teach scale, because they can, even with their feet, measure their bedroom. And then they need to, however many feet their bedroom is, that's how many inches on the page it has to be. And it is one of those higher concept lessons. And when I'm in front of them, it's a million times more easier to teach this. But to take it a step further, especially if you're doing a week of set design, day 1 could be measure your bedroom. Day 2 is, now just make a ground plan. Doesn't even have to be scale, but let's take the roof off your room. What's the layout of the furniture? And then it's boxes, right? They're just drawing boxes in the right places. And then day 3 is, okay, draw what your room looks like as a set. Now we're going to take away one wall and we're going to make it a set. And then day 4 is, make your set as elaborate as you want. Make it the most amazing bedroom / set of a play that you can imagine. So it's just a fun way to introduce set design while they're stuck at home. You know, and again, it doesn't have to be a bedroom, it could be it could be any room. But to look at their space and how would they turn that space into a set if there was an audience coming to see a play there.
I love that. That's super fun.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's very similar to what I've decided to kind of do, because we are also on the same track of, Gina, you said that you can't teach new material. I'm from Tumwater, Washington, and we're all review, nothing new. And so I have to fall back on everything that I've taught, which is all those tag elements that you've talked about. And so I said, let's create a play. You are all very familiar with your house right now. So we're going to create a play called The Play of My Life currently. And then we're doing all those things, right? We're going to design a set based off of their living space. And the next week we're going to, how would you light this play? How would you do sound the next week? And so we're just building all the elements onto that. So very similar to what you were saying.
Cool. Yeah, but I love that at the end they'll have something. I mean,
exactly.
What level is it? What grade?
K-12.
K-12.
Sorry. High school.
Okay, but so then potentially it's something to put in their portfolio, right? So we're not wasting this time. We are creating something that when they come back to you, you can now edit and help them make it portfolio worthy. So, I mean, I think that's what's so important to me, is that we're not just throwing things at them to say, let's look at theater, but let's really still build our skills. And
Right.
I think we're all on that page.
I think it's really cool that you would like using this time to create a play. It's almost like you're journaling this weird
Right.
time in your life that you're going to be able to go back and look on, because I keep encouraging my students to journal right now, but I think that's like an even better way to do it. It's like make a play about it, and
or film it. I mean, make a movie, make something. But
Yeah.
I read something recently that said our kids don't understand that they are living through history, and they will want to be able to explain this to their grandchildren. And if there's a way to do that, to convince them to record it now somehow. And I mean, as artists, as theater kids, who better, you know?
Right. I mean, we're gonna have such interesting work that comes out in like 2 to 5 years from now that will be like so reflective of this time. Does anybody else have any other set things that they're working on with their students, or any questions about teaching set design?
So I teach all of our tech classes. So I teach Tech 1 to Tech 4.
Wow.
And for Tech 1, we kind of just have the basic, like, let's learn the stuff and kind of
what is it? Yeah.
For Tech 4, I need something more challenging for them, as far as like what we were doing, which now has to be like, I'm not allowed to go back on anything, so this actually has to be nixed. But right before spring break, I assigned them an assignment that was pretty pretty perfect, and they were to cast a play, make the set, design the shirts, like do everything and have a budget. And now that is no longer allowed.
You can't do that? That is everything you've been teaching.
Yep. But at this
Wow.
point, it is now no longer allowed because I'm not allowed to use lessons I have taught. So do we have any ideas of like a little bit more challenging things that I can do for them, because they are very advanced for high school kids. They've been working real hard and it's been great, but now it's like, ugh, I feel terrible.
Now, can we, and you're saying they have little documentation, like would starting a portfolio be
yes,
a good idea right now?
Yes, I actually just got hired mid-year.
Okay.
And when I got there, there was nothing. They didn't have a portfolio. They didn't have anything. And I was like, cool, let's try and start something, which is why I was doing the plays or like set a show completely with them. Now that that's nixed, I'm kind of like in the dark and I don't know.
Have they made models?
They haven't. That was what we were going to do when we came back from spring break, which would have been this week.
Because I mean, I know in my house I have a ton of cardboard that I'm just waiting to take out.
Well, with all the Amazon shopping I've done in the past week, I get it.
But yes, but the idea of a scale model, I think, is as higher level as you can get with teaching tech. So
is there like an online program maybe that's free for them that I can dabble with? If anybody.
So I mean, there's Vectorworks and there's SketchUp and there's the ones I've not mastered them yet. I mean, I'm also a little bit old school and
oh, I get it. I would rather use the models 100%.
100%.
There also, I'll jump in really quick. There is, it's called the virtual theater. It's actually was created by a teacher down in Texas, Jeffrey Ott. And they just redid it. I think they're waiving all teacher fees.
Great.
So I'll put that in here.
Virtual theater,
they were at one point, the virtual theater, and it like lets you build and design sets.
Okay.
And you get to set all the parameters and all of that.
You can dump your students in there too. I mean, like, I haven't really explored it far enough, but you get a free license or a free time to use it, and you choose how many people you want in your group, which would be your students. So you count how many are there. I thought it looked a little complex. I have to investigate it a little more. I'm not going to lie. I'm going to have to do a screencastify or something with my students if I introduce that to them. But it looks super cool once done. So
what is the program? Repeat the program.
The virtual theater And if any of you guys look into it, if like a group of you let me know if you look into it. Jeffrey is a friend of mine, or I guess we've met because he was like talking about his program and become friends. I'm sure I could get him to do like a tutorial type thing for folks. So like, let me know if you end up using it and if you have questions, because I'm sure he would come on. We have to record a podcast soon anyway, so maybe he does the podcast as he's explaining it. So there you go.
Nice. There you go.
Right.
Hey, Bird Flintstone.
Awesome.
Thank you for that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, any time that you can get them to actually come out with something that's usable, but totally. I mean, I've been so intimidated by Vectorworks. SketchUp is a little bit more user friendly, and honestly, we got time to play right now, right? So I should challenge myself, but I do. I prefer a scale ruler. I prefer, because I just think it's so much more translatable, and you use it in life if you understand the idea of scale and building and the design elements. So
Yeah. This is so great. Okay, so I know some people are jumping out because it's the top of the hour, which is totally fine. But for those of you that are still here, so we've kind of talked a fair amount about like set, and about doing it, about a little bit about lighting. What about sound specifically? Is anybody working on any, or did I mix up sound and lighting? I might have mixed those up. Does anybody have any specific questions about sound and how, or ideas of how you're teaching that with your students right now?
I personally have a soundtrack of my life set up, and it is exactly what it sounds like. And it's from the moment. So we're supposed to have a little bit of COVID in our lesson plans. I didn't want to, but it's kind of like told. So I wanted to go from the moment that they kind of learned about what was happening and the process of like learning, you know, being home for 2 weeks and spring break. And I'm sure they're going to have like exciting music because it's spring break. And then it kind of gives the dimension, instead of, because if you were to, in the past, I've done a just soundtrack of your life and everything's been like hip hop and fun music.
right.
But I feel like at this point with this, it can't necessarily be that. It would have to be something a little more somber, something a little more insightful for them. So that was my current plan, as a soundtrack of the COVID process. It'll come up with a cuter name when we get closer.
Just to add a challenge to that, maybe some of the music needs to be instrumental, you know, or not even music. Maybe it needs to be sound, whatever.
Like sound effects. I had sound effects on there.
Yeah. I mean, and again, I just to throw it out there, my pillars for sound were amplification, mood, and cues. So not, again, it's not brilliant. It's just my sort of easy way to start the conversation. And amplification really is units on its own, because it's wattage and it's power and it's how sound travels and it's what cable goes to what to go to the board and where do you hang your speakers, and that's its whole it's a whole avenue that we just cannot teach right now unless you lecture or unless you give them a video to watch, right? Or just demonstrate it. But mood and cues, I think, are really good ways to go deep into how does sound affect a play, and how does sound affect your life, and how does sound affect a moment, and what decisions did the designer make, and how did they affect how you feel while you're watching this. So sound meaning music, sound meaning cues, sound meaning, you know, what are you hearing when it's quiet? Like my environment, I hear traffic and planes. Other environments hear very different things. So that's all stuff to think about when you're teaching sound. And also really take this opportunity to dive deep into how music and the tempo and the pace and all the music lessons that we have grown up hearing, but how are those applied to a scene? And how do they change a scene or make a scene or grow a scene?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a choreographer first, is how I came into all this. So like I'm obsessed with sound, and I'm just on the soundtrack to your life thing that you were talking about, Gina. Next week is character development and scene work and monologue work. And my major project I always do with my students is creating a soundtrack for their character that they use to get them to stay in character through the whole show, and then also like an overarching one. But we can talk about that next week because that's not the topic this week. But it's very similar. So Allison had a really good question. I think that whole idea is awesome that you guys were just all talking about. But I also was wondering, is there a place that you can tell your students to look to get sound effects? And do you have them cut or splice them? Do you have to have some kind of software to do that? Like, any thoughts on that?
I just use YouTube.
Again, I'm fortunate in that we purchased a sounds library. So my school has one, and recently one of the teachers put it in on the drive, on our school drive, which was awesome. The kids know ways to get music and get sound illegally. I mean, it's horrible. But when I teach this unit, I have to do a lot of where did you get it and is it legal? There are also ways, you can download sound off YouTube. You can download sound off. And I want to be very clear that you can take a recording device and go record sound. Go break some sticks, and that could be many different sounds, which might be another fun project for kids who are stuck home right now. Go bang some pans. What can you use that sound for that's not banging pans? Can it be thunder? Can it be a party? Can it be, how do we create sound cues without actually having sound cues because we're stuck at home? There are a few websites that I use that are just free. They're clips. They're like 30 seconds of a hair dryer, and you can download it. I just have to find it. I don't have it off the top of my head, but I have to find it. I always just Google free sound effects. But really, I try not to go with canned stuff. I really try and encourage the kids to find what works that is not something that somebody else created.
Okay. What sound library do you guys use?
Let me look. I don't know. Off the top of my head, I don't know, but I can search for it. Hang
on. While you're doing that, Amanda posted something from PlayScripts that they're going to be releasing some work that can be performed on Zoom. So
great.
Check out that is in the chat, and there is a link. So even if you're watching this replay, go check out that link, and yeah, that'll be probably very helpful. Okay, bye, Sharon.
That was my crowd cheering sound cue. I don't see the name of it. I can email really quick and find out for you. And then,
Okay,
is there a way, I guess I could give to Lindsay and you could just add it to the reference list? Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, we can do that. Or Anna, you could just post it in Spotlight because
okay.
Allison's a member of that. And then we also will send out in the email though.
Great.
Great. Anybody else have any specific questions? I want to make sure that we get through everybody's questions. No? Okay, does anybody have any non-sound questions that now that you have a few educators all in the same space that anybody would like to talk or would like to vent or just has comments about this experience of like teaching online? Is there any way that we can provide a space for you guys to talk about that? Now is fine too.
I get it.
Not especially. I'm kind of looking forward to this weird, like everyone gets back together and we have to figure out real quick what we're going to do. Cause I think it's going to be such a valuable lesson for the kids that You know, this crazy thing happened. We were all forced to be apart. We're used to being together. Now, how do we make the most of our time now that we're back together to make this art happen? It's not going to look like we thought it was going to look. We're not going to have the same vision that we had before. We're having to adapt so much. And we might not even have the same cast members that we had before, because if we have to do a show in June that we were supposed to do in April, some of those kids might not be available. So we may have to like kind of put all three casts together and go like, okay, who can step in for so-and-so because now they're on their family vacation. And I think it's gonna be really interesting and really fun. And
I can't believe you're doing 3 shows at the same time.
we do, because we have different age groups, and so we want to keep the 8 to 12-year-olds kind of together, but then those 9 to 12-year-olds that are kind of more advanced and have been doing this for a long time, they want to be in the older, more mature show, and they know how to behave. So the older kids don't mind that they're there because they're very serious about their work. So it's more of like a maturity level thing than it is an age group. We also are doing our first straight play since I opened my studio, which I'm really excited about. So we're getting to teach them things, since we're not singing and dancing, like the lighting and the design aspects, and really dissecting the script. Charlotte's Web.
Oh,
the straight play version. But we're
such fun opportunities.
It really does.
It's a great show.
Yeah. So I even, I'm telling the parents, we might just show up in our cast shirts and leggings as our costumes, and we'll use props. And I love the idea of like, hey guys, these are the list of props that we needed. This is the set that we were, we had imagined. Help us reimagine it. Choose a piece to build at home. And when we all get back together, bring that piece and we'll make it work.
Yeah,
I love that.
Say, can you assign that now? Can you just send out the list now and have them say, I got the web, or I got the jug, or I got the prize ribbon?
Yep, I can.
That's fun. Because I think that'll also get the parents excited for the point where this is over. We're back together.
Yeah.
We're having, they're actively working on what it's going to look like when we could come out of our houses.
It'll be an exciting day.
I love that.
And it'll give them a turn to be like, look what I made. What did you make? Because we have these different band, we use the band app to kind of like get our kids in a little group. And so they can post questions or stuff on the wall.
Yeah.
So I think it'd be really cool. Like, I made a web, and show it off, and it keeps them going.
This is your studio, so you're not bound by school rules.
No,
that's
not
cool.
at all.
It's fantastic. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Because the show could go up. Because I know so many schools have just canceled it. So I love that.
Right.
Or postponed till maybe next year.
Right. Which is another challenge, because if you have seniors or I can't imagine that challenge.
This is crazy, but I mean, I don't know, just listening to everybody is like bringing so much hope that it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Everything will change in the future, but hopefully for the best. And I think that as educators, it's going to make us better educators and more conscious of the choices we're making. So even though right now it feels a little bit like maybe we want to jump out of the nearest window or bang our head against the wall, it'll be, in the long run, it'll be good. So
definitely.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if anybody else has any questions, feel free to unmute. But it seems like we're probably done. So I just wanted to say thank you guys so much for coming, and for those of you that are watching in replay. If you are interested in continuing to do anything with Retheater, we have a bunch of different stuff going on. So right now we have a 30-day musical theater listening challenge. I'm going to put this stuff on the chat that you guys can get in on. It's on all of our social media. It could be fun for your students. And that coincides directly with musical theater history class that I'm actually going to be teaching on Thursdays. That's Pay What You Can. And that is all, it's going to coincide with that 30-day listening challenge, but it's all looking at musical theater through the lens of how musical theater is a rebellious act. So we're looking at the characters the creators and the stories that have pushed boundaries to make the art form that we all love. Well, maybe, hopefully, I mean, I love it. So yeah. And then, and that starts tomorrow, but you can check out the link. You can sign up. It's pay what you can, because all of our programming at Retheater for the rest of through the June 30th is pay what you can or free, because we know so many people's financial situations have changed. And then the final one is, if this was helpful, getting this feedback directly from Anna or myself, we have a educator community called Spotlight that's full of educators who are really dedicated to using their program to help their students be global citizens, but also want to help heal their communities now and after COVID-19. So we're brainstorming ways that we can kind of think about the way that we're going to re-enter back into our communities. If you're interested in joining, it's usually a $30 fee per month, but we're waiving that as pay what you can. So check that out. I'm happy to chat with you. You get one-on-one consultations with myself and other mentors. You can also, we have a library full of past master classes, lesson plans, all kinds of stuff that we'd love to have you come there. And if you can pay something, awesome, because we are trying to keep our 11 other artists on staff. But if not, we want to just help you. So $0 is totally fine as well. But yeah, I mean, this has been super helpful. I mean, for me, just to like learn about tech, and I hope it was helpful for you guys too. So thanks, Anna.
Yeah, it's really good to hear what's going on in the rest of the country, because I really feel isolated, of course, but yeah, I want to help as much as I can. So thank you for the opportunity, because you know, we're all in this together, as everybody's been saying. Right. But I mean, I just feel like theater teachers have this particular challenge, because we have the artists, like we're you know, we're raising the artists.
So based off of community too.
What's that?
What we teach is so based off of community. It's hard to have a theater, tech, or drama, I mean anything, without having that group connection.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm really curious to see how the kids come out of this without it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting for sure.
Yeah. Cool.
Do you guys states have artists funding happening? I just got an email from an arts organization in my area saying that our governor just announced some COVID relief specifically for artists.
Oh, nice.
So I don't know if that's happening, you know, in other states, but I just want to say, like, peel your eyes for it. If you have like an organization that, or like a Chamber of the Arts or a National Endowment of the Arts organization that receives benefit money from them, they may have some information on it. I know that we had like a Louisiana artist survey that we filled out, and they took a heartbeat of like who is being impacted and how, and you know, I answered a bunch of questions as an artist, because I do sometimes perform in the community, but coming from a business owner standpoint, I'm not going to take any of that money, because I'm sorry, my dogs are crazy. Everyone's on their afternoon walk. Please, girls, please stop. Stop. I'm sorry. I'm gonna mute myself until they stop it.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Lindsay. I think Arts Fund is a nonprofit that has money up in Seattle, right?
So I moved like 6 months ago, so I'm not paying as much attention to Seattle. I know that what is the name of, and that's actually a group that anybody could join. They're doing everything online. Lily Raby is heading it up from Intiman. This means nothing unless you're in the Seattle area. I will find it, but I assume Arts Fund is doing some work. I know that $1 million was approved for some kind of art relief in Seattle.
Yeah.
So there are, and I mean, also, like, I think we all just kind of have to like hold out some hope, because the Kennedy Center and the National Endowment for the Arts didn't receive full funding in the stimulus package, but they received at least partial. So at least there will, like, any of like your arts boards in any of your states should still be getting funding coming in from the national or from the federal government. So just keep that, and then you can also like tote that around as the next stimulus comes through and encourage your senators and your congressmen to get the National Endowment for the Arts to get some funding. And you can also talk to any of, I don't know, maybe idiot people that you know on Facebook that we shouldn't be getting funding.
Did you see that?
You know, so
also Actors Fund is national.
Yep.
I know that.
And
if
Actors Fund is
that
not
Rosie little special on YouTube, which was
so great.
But Actors Fund is national.
Yeah. And so I think that I'm probably being really overly positive about it. I was just on a call yesterday about like arts funding across the country. And I'm hopeful that like we will pull out of this and be okay, in that like there will be funding in different places coming in. It's right now just like not going into that full panic mode.
Yeah.
But this is also just like as a like dramaturg and community engagement specialist, like this is also the time to start like talking about ways that you can partner within your community and finding like local not even sponsorships, like how can you just like create those connections and then potentially they will turn into sponsorships, but not going into it that way. And if anybody wants to nerd out and like dive deeply into your community, like please shoot me an email, because I'm happy to brainstorm that out with you guys. We'll figure it out.
I have a question. So I didn't get to register or anything because I just hadn't, everything else is happening.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'll do it in a second. And keep your mind at this point. How can I get the this beautiful conversation happening?
Yeah, great. Like the recording of it?
Yeah. I know earlier you're like, we're gonna email it. And I was like, crap.
Yeah, so I think that just like click that link that was in the group. And they'll like say like you can like this is how you sign up. And then that's once you sign up, I'll send it out to you.
Cool, thank you. Sorry about joining so late.
I may have registered multiple times because I was like,
I think you did, Harrison. I was like, I don't know if it's like kicking his email out, because also all of my technology the last like 2 days has decided to fail, which is
I was having troubles, but
my system within like 48 hours, if you did register like 3 or 4 times, should clean you out and just have you in there once. But I'll double check that so you don't get 12 emails.
Perfect. And I have another question. Is there there's a way to sign up for Spotlight and to donate to?
Yeah, yep. So when you go to Spotlight, you can sign up for 0. If you want to do a different monthly payment, it gives you that option in there as well.
Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
because then that money goes to helping our people, but also
Perfect.
we're all just figuring this out together.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you guys.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Yeah, it's so interesting to talk to you guys. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Well, we'll hopefully see you guys next week then. Next week, I'm being joined with, actually, she's a Seattle artist, Kate Yeager, is going to be joining me. She's done a bunch of work with us before. We're going to be talking about character development, scene work, and monologue work with your students, and finding ways besides just having them, sit in front of a camera and awkwardly monologue at you to do their work. So it'll be a lot of fun. But other than that, maybe see some of you guys tomorrow at Musical Theater History. Otherwise, we'll see you next week.
Perfect. Thank you.
Bye, guys. Nice to talk to you. Take care.
Bye, Anna.
Bye. Lindsay, we'll talk soon.
Yes. Okay.
Take
bye.
care. Bye.